genre.
Doctor's Companion presents Doctor Who The Long Way Around, the weekly podcast where we review and discuss every episode of Doctor Who, one doctor at a time. I'm Scott Corelli.
I'm Cassandra Fredrickson.
And I'm Nick Jimenez.
And today on the show, we will be discussing episodes 1 through 3 of Marco Polo, the First Doctor's fifth story.
What a story it is.
Yeah. So Marco Polo is written by John Lucarati, which, by the way, can we just talk about how much I love that an Italian dude is writing the Marco Polo story?
Yeah, I was like, this is nice.
Yeah, it's about like I love that they bothered to get an Italian guy to write the Marco Polo story. But, there's a lot of Mongolian Caucasians in that.
Technically he's not even Italian. I think his, dad's Italian. Because he was born in England, so it's not like...
John Lucarati?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Because he's actually... what I was going to get into is actually he was a writer that Sidney Newman met while working for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Before moving to England. So he had actually worked with him before on CBC radio things, including a 15-part radio serial in 1956 about Marco Polo. And he had all of this extra material about the journey to Cathay, which is sort of based around this research he did on Marco Polo's journals and things, and he had to take that out of the 15-part serial about Marco Polo that he did.
He had to cut stuff out of a 15-part serial
about all of Marco Polo. Yes,
man.
Yeah, and then he took out this whole journey storyline out of the 15-part serial and then expanded it into its own 7-part serial and made it a Doctor Who episode.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
that's what this is.
21 installments of two serials about Marco Polo.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could write that much about... I'm trying to think of what I know the most about. Man, yeah, no, just congratulations on the research that must have been.
Honestly, I could write a series almost as long as the actual series about the behind the scenes of Doctor Who.
That would be fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
like a Larry Sanders-esque take on the writing of Doctor Who, or
or just, an adventure in space and time, the series.
Limited series. Yeah. But
anyway,
great, man.
I think that's about. I mean, I guess I probably could about the crazy stuff that happened at Marvel too, like when it first started out. But
Console Wars, I remember was something you talked about, like doing a Console Wars, but like DC.
Yeah.
So I need to read that.
Although I want to write a Console Wars about Doctor Who. That's what I really want to do.
Like a tell-all book. Yeah, that sounds very possible. Because I feel like if I'm your if I was pitching this book to a publishing company, I'd be like, look, you give this man X amount of money and a passport, and he will not stop. He'll get everyone.
I will not stop.
He will interview every single person and just like Jake Gyllenhaal in Zodiac, just like.
speaking of will not stop. So that's basically all there is to it as far as the writing of this particular story. I mean, he took character names and things actually, and storylines. The Pink Cho stuff is directly out of Marco Polo's journals. It comes from a different section of his journals. This journey culminated around 1275, and this Ping Cho stuff actually happened in 1292, but he just sort of combined it all to give Susan a friend.
Did Marco Polo really have a treacherous compatriot named Tagana?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So all of this stuff was actually based on like real stuff. It's really, in a lot of ways, it's sort of like the first like kind of legitimate historical episode.
And I was going to say it does feature some very, dated and unfortunate and awkward like casting stuff, but during the cursory amount of research I did on this episode, it's remembered as kind of the first or one of the highlights of a Doctor Who story, taking care and paying respect to its history. And I just thought the juxtaposition of those two things were really interesting to me.
Yeah. Because I mean, technically speaking, the first historical is 100,000 BC, but I mean, the less said about that, the better. It's like historical in inverted commas. Like it's not.
it's as historical as like 10,000 BC.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So that's how it was written. The episode, or the story was directed, by Waris Hussein, with John Crockett directing episode 4. But Waris Hussein, of course, he was the director of, An Unearthly Child in 100,000 BC. So he's the first director ever. He was the guy in, struggling with their crappy soundstage in the movie, in the Adventures in Space and Time movie.
Yeah.
And whereas this is actually, he was meant to direct half of the episodes in this first season, but he was so frustrated by how cheap this show was that he requested to leave and work on other things, and they let him go. So this is actually the last Doctor Who story he ever worked on. He was invited back to direct The Five Doctors in 1983, but he ended up turning it down due to a bunch of American commitments that he had already made. But that would have been really cool if he had been able to direct Five Doctors.
Yeah, it's interesting. And new listeners of the show, the movie that we're referencing so much, An Adventure Through Space and Time, is 100% worth watching, no matter what level of Whovian you consider yourself to be. It's a great gateway drug to the original series, I think.
Yeah.
And I have yet to watch it without crying, so there's that.
So good.
It's so good. And if you're just joining us for the first time, on this Long Way Around thing, you have 4 seasons of Long Way Around back in the feed, and on our very first Long Way Around, we talked about that movie. So
we gave it like a proper episode.
Yeah, along with the pilot, An Unearthly Child, the very very first episode, not the serial, because I separated the two because they don't belong together. They just don't. Yeah, they just don't belong together at all.
Have we brought up that this is a reconstruction yet?
Right. So this is a reconstruction, and that was the last bit of behind the scenes details I wanted to get into.
Oh, cool.
So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the reconstruction term and what a reconstruction actually is, it's basically the audio for every story. Every Doctor Who story exists, but a lot of the tapes were wiped by the BBC to save space and reuse material. And their thought process being, no one is ever going to want to watch a TV show again They already saw it. Why would they ever want to watch something again? Yeah, what? Right, exactly. So they just wiped the tape. So there's a bunch of I believe 92 episodes missing in Doctor Who. It's a lot of stuff. All during the first and second Doctor era. And Marco Polo is the first. It's the earliest story that's missing. And 3 years ago. No, 5 years ago. 5 years ago, someone came out of the woodwork and claimed to have found 3 episodes of Marco Polo in their father's barn. They said that they found videotapes that had copies of Marco Polo, and they sent it to the BBC. Literally nothing has happened since then. So it's largely assumed that was false, that they either weren't actually episodes of Marco Polo, or they were in such bad condition because they were found in a barn, that they weren't, it wasn't possible to do anything with them. So Marco Polo doesn't exist. Instead, what exists are what's called a reconstruction, where they take the audio, and back in the day there was this thing that they would do so that they would be able to find problems with their broadcast, or just to keep track and like make sure there was no issues happening in like sort of like the smaller networks. Like, you know, you have your major network, and then you have like little satellite networks that air the same stuff. And a lot of times those places wouldn't have the budget to have somebody working around the clock. So what they would do is they'd set up a thing called a telesnap, which was essentially to track and make sure that nothing was happening incorrectly while no one was manning the post. So what it would do is it would basically there would be a television that would be playing the station, and there would be a camera set up to take a picture every 30 seconds. And then they would review those pictures and they'd see the picture change and see that nothing seemed to be going wrong. So they'd be like, okay, that's good. And what they've basically done is they've taken telesnaps from when Marco Polo aired originally, and have used those images combined with the audio to sort of reconstruct the story the best it can possibly be done. And some usually it's just the images and that's it. The one that we watched for Marco Polo was colorized for some reason.
Yes, that's the one I watched.
Yeah. And then there are fan reconstructions that do things like they take the telesnaps and they cut the people out of the backgrounds and they turn them into like basically paper dolls that they kind of like animate sort of. Yes. So that like when people are walking, the little paper doll guys are like walking, and it's
doggy.
It's fine.
It is fine.
It is fine. And then other people, they'll do reconstructions where they basically take The Sims and animate it using The Sims, which was another version of this Marco Polo that exists online that you can find. But yeah, so there's lots of reconstruction. Some people do full animated things, but that doesn't happen very often because it's time consuming and I assume expensive, and I would also assume that Marco Polo probably wouldn't be the first choice for a lot of animators.
Yes, it is it's talky.
It is very talky. It is very talky, and the sets are surprisingly intricate.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I would think would be difficult in animation.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Especially Sims animation.
So that's yeah. Well, Sims animation seems to work out. But yeah. So that's
and for real, all they're easy to goof on good naturedly, but really shout out to the YouTubers that created those and uploaded them for no other reason than the good of the Who.
Yeah.
The colorized one we all watched, the loose cannon one. Did you guys watch like the introduction with the guy who plays Marco Polo?
Yes, writing into his journal. Of
no,
course, yes.
There's like there's like a tiny interview with him at the very beginning of it.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
I didn't see that.
I think on YouTube it was a different video, but the file that I have, it's like all the same thing.
Wow.
So the reason that it's colorized is because this set in particular was so beautiful and the costuming was so wonderful that they like took a bunch of set pictures and set like along with the telesnaps. So, and those pictures were in color to like show off like, this is what we're doing over here. Give us money.
Yeah, that's cool. So many of them did look like classic film stills.
Yeah. So like, I think for the telesnaps too, like, so whoever like was working on this loose cannon reconstruction took the time to like hand colorize the actual like black and white telesnaps for this. And they had like, I think the little like prelude and like epilogue thing where you have like old Marco Polo sitting and writing is from the novelization, but I'm not entirely sure.
It looks like Ghost Rider. It looks like 20 years after this aired.
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure where they got like the little script for it or like who wrote that, but like Luca Ratti also did the novelization for all of his stories too, so maybe they like added I don't know. But it was made in like the 80s, I think, this reconstruction. And and
you can I mean, this is a really, the costumes and from what we get from these photographs, it does look like it was very visually impressive. It still is. The Kublai Khan's castle looks really cool from the photos. We can go on.
Well, let's talk about episode 1.
The Roof of the World.
Marco Polo Part 1. Written by John Lucarotti. Directed by Waris Hussein. Produced by Verity Lambert. Script edited by David Whitaker. Air date February 22nd, 1964. The TARDIS has landed and is broken, unable to provide heat, light, or water. The Doctor, Susan, Ian, and Barbara are unsure of where they have landed, but it is snowy, cold, and at a high altitude. Ian and Barbara attempt to search for fuel to keep warm, but see a shadowy figure and hurry back. While they are gone, the Doctor figures out what's wrong with the TARDIS, but is interrupted by their return. The figure followed them, and the crew move to chase it off, but find themselves surrounded by Mongol warriors. Convinced the TARDIS crew are evil spirits, the Mongols want to kill them, but someone intervenes on their behalf. Their rescuer turns out to be Marco Polo. He introduces the TARDIS crew to some of his fellow travelers, including Tigana, a warlord, and Ping Cho, a young Chinese woman on her way to meet her much older husband-to-be. She and Susan become fast friends. Still suspicious, the Mongols fear the Doctor is a sorcerer who draws his power from the TARDIS, and Marco Polo forbids the Doctor from entering it while they travel across the desert. However, by the time they reach a nearby way station, Marco Polo has decided he will requisition the so-called flying caravan for the use of the Emperor, Kublai Khan. Tigana has a plot of his own, however, to poison the entire caravan's water supply and steal the TARDIS for his master, Nogai, a rival to Kublai Khan.
Yeah.
It's a cool title.
So, well, it's a little extra, I think, but it's
sure.
It's fine. Like when Ian is just like looking out into the distance, so they end up on the Alps, right? Mm-hmm. Is where they land, and he's just like looking out, and he's just like, we're on the Alps, the roof of the world.
Because they don't know where they are,
right,
and like they land in the Himalayas, and the Himalayas is technically called the roof of the world because it's the highest mountain range.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because they go across the Gobi Desert.
I thought they were in the Alps.
No.
Okay, they're in the. All right, they're in the Himalayas. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so the roof of the world, and then that's when the Mongolian Caucasians show up, and this will not be the last time that they choose not to cast Asians in Asian roles.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is an ongoing thread, basically forever. I don't think there was an Asian in Doctor Who, and like a legitimate Asian in Doctor Who, until the Doctor in not the Doctor, but a Doctor in the World War III story, the farting aliens.
Yeah,
who ended up being on torture.
The actress
right?
that plays Ping Chu, I believe, again from the cursory work. It was a British actress born in Burma.
Yeah, her mother is Burmese, so she's half Burmese, which makes me feel a little better that at least somebody of Asian descent has a speaking role. Because the other two are like not even credited, and they're just like background people. Mm-hmm. But we also have like the Master's companion in the movie. He's Asian.
Oh right, I guess that would be the first one. Good call. Forgot about him. The Asian child. My God.
Oh man, this is a very fun episode to watch after having seen Twice Upon a Time and having that episode had a good bit of fun with the first Doctor's let's just say aged points of view, and so it really did the job. Wow, it really mission of course correcting and being like, oh, I can watch this in context now and know that he's being a big old dumbhead. Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, I interrupted.
This guy playing Marco Polo is.
Yes.
I mean, he is just the most British Italian person.
the close-up photos of him where he's just like squinting into the light and just like he's like Kirk Douglas.
He looks like Will from Will and Grace. Like he's just.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I felt a lot of different things about Marco Polo in this episode.
Yeah. I really like just the like it wasn't enough that this was a historical episode. He also write in all of these moments where Ian gets to flex his science skills. Right. Like we have in this episode, they're like, we're sorry that the tea tastes so bad. And he's like, oh, well, that's because of the altitude and the boiling point. And they're just like, what?
I don't want to get too into other parts, but the condensation scene was pretty amazing.
Right. That's in part 3. But it's. I do like that. I don't love the Doctor getting altitude sickness.
Yeah, he's so fragile in this story.
Mm-hmm. He's fragile through his whole run. Okay. Really.
Yeah.
He has a very slight constitution.
He's kind of like the Mr. Burns version of old person, where you just have to like carry him like a baby.
Yes. It's very true. So basically, they get picked up by the Mongolians, and then Marco Polo shows up and he's like, what are you wacky Mongolians doing? Mm-hmm. And they're just like, well, we were just going to kill these guys. And they're like, hey, don't do that. Let's steal their stuff. And
look at that caravan.
Bring them along with us.
The weirdest looking caravan I ever did see.
Yeah. So they bring them along with them. And we meet this girl, this Mongolian girl named Pingcho, who is arranged to be married to a 75-year-old man, which Susan and Barbara are just completely offended by. Rightfully so, but even so, like, absolutely no patience for the time of like the time of history that they're in. They're
remember,
like, no,
guys, we're not here. We're tourists, guys. We're observers. We're not here to.
Yeah.
No,
you are not marrying a 75-year-old. That is crazy and gross. And I also just love that Ping Cho is just like, I guess it is crazy and gross. Like, she didn't really have any real thoughts about it beforehand. She's just like, well, this is the way it is. And they're like, no, that's crazy and gross. Oh, I guess it is.
Ping Cho and Susan's friendship is rockets and above my favorite thing about this story. But yeah, it's
honestly, I wish she had become a new companion, to be totally honest.
Yeah, and they're we'll get to it at the end. But yeah, it's weird. Yeah, I'm a fan, also a fan of Barbara in this episode. I think this is the most I've ever liked Barbara.
Yeah, Barbara's real good. And then when Marco basically tells them that he's gonna keep the TARDIS
for the
because he's gonna give it as a gift to Kublai Khan. So that he can go home to Venice, because he's not allowed to go home because Kublai Khan won't let him go home. Mm-hmm. But if he has a cool gift like their dumb blue box, then I guess Kublai Khan will let him go free. And I just love, they're trying to argue with him about it, and he finally just leaves. He's like, no, I'm stealing your dumb box. I don't care. You can build another one. Which I don't. What's so amazing about it? It's just a dumb wooden blue box.
Yeah, what do you think is cool about it?
Yeah, he keeps calling it a flying machine, but I don't understand why he thinks that. Is it just because they're on the mountain?
They refer to it as a caravan. But yeah, no, it is, and I guess that is what is so frustrating, and why I was so frustrated with the Marco character in the story was he was just kind of I don't know, I forgot if I can say this word on the show, but yeah, he was just kind of a dork,
He's a dick.
He's a dick. Okay, we can say it. Yeah, he was kind of a dick, and he was just no, you can't leave because I got to give it to the Kublai Khan, and it was just you don't even know what you have. I was just so I wanted him to die, and I knew he wasn't gonna die in the story. And he did
because history tells you so.
Yes, and he redeems himself at the end. But I do remember being God, you're just. I remember thinking you're making the plot slower.
Yeah,
but yeah. So
there's a lot of things doing that.
Yeah,
this story. Yeah, and then we have met already. What's his face? Tigana, and Tigana.
One letter away from Tegan.
Yeah, I know. Tigana and just as terrible. And Tigana is he's gonna poison the water hole.
He is my favorite. I realized watching this episode, I think my favorite kind of bad guy is the sneaky dude that's pretending to be friends but then booby trapping everything.
Yeah. You're trying to kill us. What? No, I'm not.
Yeah. Tigana rolls a D20 in stealth this whole story.
Yeah, I know.
He's not subtle.
No. Oh, Tigana.
We'll talk about him. He's all over this thing.
So that brings us to episode 2.
Marco Polo Part 2. Written by John Lucarotti. Directed by Waris Hussein. Produced by Verity Lambert. Script edited by David Whitaker. Air date February 29th, 1964. The travelers make their way across the Gobi Desert. Upset, the doctor repeatedly refuses to leave his tent or eat when they have made camp for the night, which distresses Susan. Frustrated at being trapped on Earth without the use of the TARDIS, Susan vents her troubles to Ping Cho, and the two of them decide to follow Tigana as he sneaks away from the camp. He intends to poison the water gourds, but a sandstorm begins, during which Susan and Ping Cho are briefly lost. Instead of the poison, he slashes the water supply open with his knife instead, and in the morning blames bandits. Marco Polo insists that the caravan press on, but as they continue, the water rations begin to run out. Unable to travel much during the day because of exhaustion and dehydration, Marco Polo sends Tigana out to a nearby oasis to bring water back to them. He finds the oasis, but does not return as he promised, expecting the caravan to die of dehydration in the desert.
The Singing Sands.
Really cool episode titles in the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
I can picture them. Also, I can picture them being chapter titles of an adventure book.
Totally. Episode 2 also introduces us to the Indiana Jones map that we get throughout the story.
Yes, it's great
because this story takes place over months.
Right.
3 months.
3 months,
and really bringing it back to it really does feel. Maybe this added to the way I was absorbing the story, which is largely almost like an audiobook. This story did feel like an adventure story, like an Alan Quatermain book, or it had an epic. Mm-hmm. It had a sense, and sometimes it did feel slow, but sometimes I enjoyed it because they really are usually so rushed on these adventures that the idea of them being trapped and the idea of Susan having to be on a horse for weeks, it felt like you were reading this epic story.
Yeah.
So yeah,
this episode in particular, I wish it was called the Oregon Trail because that's.
The doctor got dehydrated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Susan.
Yeah. And then you're, Marco Polo, he just, he has that great line where he's talking about having to endure the doctor's insults.
I know, that made me laugh.
Oh my God. Like while we're looking at the Indiana Jones map, like while they're traveling. So it's like they're traveling over a long distance. He's talking about enduring the doctor's insults. Dummy. And I just imagine him like sitting next to him in like one of the covered wagons. And he's just like, you idiot, you stupid idiot. Yeah. You don't even know what's in that box, you dumb moron.
And to be honest, Scott's
days.
Scott's language is far kinder than the first Doctor's actual words.
I know.
To Marco Polo, especially towards the end when he just outright is just like, you savage, you stupid savage. I'm like, geez, dude.
Yeah. All kinds of Italian slurs.
Yeah. And all the while, one good thing during this arduous journey is, the blossoming friendship of Susan and Pinchot. Susan, is this Susan's first friend?
Yes.
I think so. Yeah,
her first friend, even remotely close to her age.
Right.
Which,
let me ask you something about. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't know there was more.
Oh no. Which I can't remember which part. I believe it was 1 or 2. We got verbal confirmation that Susan is 16.
Oh, okay. Or she's pretending to be.
16. She probably is 16, but I do think emotionally, mentally, she still sees herself as like 11 or 12.
All right.
Anyway, you were gonna make a point. You were gonna say something.
No. I was just gonna ask. This had come up on the board at some point, the Facebook group, the Doctor's Companion listener group. For those of you who are on Facebook but not in the group, you should join it. So this had come up over there, and I just want to know, like, on the show, what you guys think of this theory that I had never really seen before. But I was watching this now, having read that theory and being like, what do you guys think about the theory that Susan isn't really the Doctor's granddaughter and is just like a student or something that just came along with him, and she calls him grandfather because anything else would be like confusing. Like she's like the legitimate first companion because she's not really related to him.
I believe the idea of her not being the Doctor's maternal granddaughter does ring true to me. Like, if that were to be revealed in canon, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. But I do believe that the Doctor's relationship with Susan is that of a grandfather. Like, I do think that is just what Susan, kind of like, I remember growing up, I had uncles. Yeah. And then when I was like 14, I'd be like, hey, how is Uncle Joe related to us? And they'd be like, oh, no, he's not actually. You met your dad when they were like 12. I'm like, what the heck? So I can imagine it being like, this has been Susan's ward for like her entire life, basically. And just grandfather comes more natural to her than calling him doctor.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you think, Cass?
I don't know if I like it. Because, like...
Yeah.
It doesn't, like... Because their relationship is what their relationship is. But, like, it feels like... Like, why would she have come with him? Did he just steal her? Or, like...
Yeah, like, I really do get a sense that it was... If not, like, yeah, like, the Doctor... I mean, Susan definitely sees the Doctor as...
Well, why? I mean, why does anyone go with the Doctor? Wouldn't she travel with him for the same reason anyone else does?
Well, I mean,
it does seem to be more of like I'm looking after him more than like I want to see adventure. Like I want.
Like, is she from Gallifrey then?
Yeah.
So if she's from Gallifrey and she knows other Time Lords, I mean, other Time Lords go everywhere too. So why would she? Go with the Doctor?
But is she a Time Lord? Because I don't think that's been.
I thought that I thought there was like a
distinction
between like Gallifreyans and Time Lords. Like Time Lords is like a
right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm saying she's a Gallifreyan, but is she a Time Lord?
Oh no, I don't think she's a Time Lord.
Okay, yeah. So she could be anybody.
And there is, and not to go too far into there is because I don't think we're going to talk about it when we get to that episode, but in the last story, there's a really cool scene where Ping Cho and Susan are talking about the concept of home.
Yeah.
And Susan is like, well, the Kublai Khan's not going to be able to take me home, Ping Cho. Like my home is very, very far away. And I was like, oh, she's talking about Gallifrey. That was like where my mind went.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I think based on, I don't know. I really don't like the idea of the Doctor leaving his family behind on Gallifrey, like his kids and stuff. Like that seems weird to me. And I think I prefer the idea that he's just been a lifelong bachelor and went on the run,
like Bilbo
and maybe yeah, and maybe he was he was like he's like the Gallifreyan Bilbo, and
he's
and maybe
we don't like him,
and maybe
we sell his things if he's gone for too long.
Yeah, I mean that's literally how all the Time Lords treat the Doctor.
Yeah.
And maybe maybe he was like a teacher or something on Gallifrey before he left, like during his long life as William Hartnell, and she was a student of his or something, and
like the original Bill Potts.
Yeah, she just right, like she just sort of became like the OG de facto companion, like the first time that ever happened.
I will say though, the idea of calling someone grandfather without at least knowing them for like 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always kind of like intuited, I guess, that she was his grandfather and that she is the only family that he has. Or not she was his grandfather, but you know what I mean.
We absolutely.
Time. But, they're related and he's the only family that she has left because, like, something happened to his kids. So he, like, took his grandchild.
They're the only family that the other one has.
Yeah.
And the relationship it's awkward a little bit, but you can also tell that, Susan really does rely on the Doctor's guardianship at this point, and the Doctor really does need Susan to be around.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I just don't like that. I don't like that he has a family. I don't like that he has a family that's dead. I don't like that either. I don't.
See, I've always seen this that he does not really have a chill home life, because why would he bomb around so much?
Yeah.
He doesn't have anyone waiting for him.
Yeah, that's why I said I think he's a bachelor.
Yeah,
I don't think they're dead. I just don't think he has family.
I don't know. I kind of like. Now I'm kind of with Cass. I like the idea of him being like, I can't think about that. Whatever. But Susan is like, Susan. Like I can't.
And like the reason,
because I also
the reason that I'm kind of like in that camp is because when Matt Smith is the Doctor, he has that cradle. Like, where would he have gotten that cradle if it wasn't like, I don't know. I mean, it's implied that it's maybe his, but like I've always read that as like it was maybe Susan's or like something like his children,
Yeah, I think it is somewhere in the middle where like I do believe in my heart that Susan has known the Doctor since she was like a baby, but I just don't know whether or not that means that she is literally her granddaughter or just like. This is my guardian, but I call him grandfather because we'll look at him. He's
Yeah, see, I don't think. I think the term, the phrase, the title, grandfather means absolutely nothing to her, and that's why she's totally comfortable calling someone that.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
That she isn't. No, I don't think it means anything to them.
Yeah.
Why would it? Mm-hmm. Why would the term grandfather mean anything to aliens from another planet?
Well, they must have like similar concepts, like spawn of my spawn, like
Yeah, I don't know, because like I guess we don't. The only thing we know about Time Lords is that they're like really cold and distant.
Yeah,
and so I don't know that family really means anything to them. The way that it does to Earth people.
Maybe that's
and I
why
think that,
he left.
Maybe. I don't know. I think I'm just very, very much against the Doctor having
because I guess in this story he gets really riled up when Susan's being held hostage and he refers to her as her his grandchild. But
yeah, I definitely do think that they do have a familial relationship, whether it's blood or just through nurture. I don't know. But
yeah,
that feels like the truth to me, is that she does see that's grandpa, that's grandfather, that's my guardian.
I don't know. Yeah, I like the other theory, but that's fine. I just
it's great that you can.
I don't like it. Yeah. All right. Well, what else happens in part 2? Oh, Jafar.
Tagana.
But yeah, Tagana. I mean, it's totally what he is. So there's even an Aladdin reference in part 3. So Tagana is he can't. I guess in the last one, he couldn't poison the water, and so he decides he's just gonna cut up the gourds that hold the water so that they'll leak out all the water.
One of my favorite cliffhangers or cliffhanger lines.
Yeah, right. So he does that. He drains that, and then they're like, okay, well, why don't you go to the other go to the oasis where there's water and go get water and bring it back for us. And they're like, oh yeah. He's like, okay. And then he leaves and then finds it and drinks from the water. And then he's like, here's your water, Marco Polo. And then just pours it on the ground. Tagana's just the most extra kind of dick. He's
it's wonderful.
He's pretty special. He's a special little boy. But yeah, that's that. Also, everybody thinks that the Doctor's a wizard and he gets his powers from his magic box, and so they won't let him go in there.
They're not wrong.
I mean, I guess fair point. Fair point. So, episode 3, 500 Eyes.
Marco Polo Part 3. Written by John Lucarotti. Directed by Waris Hussein. Produced by Verity Lambert. Script edited by David Whitaker. Air date March 7, 1964. The travelers only manage to survive because of the condensation that the Doctor and Susan are able to collect in the morning from the TARDIS walls. They are able to make it to the next city where a surprised and displeased Tagana finds them. During a performance of sorts by Ping Cho, Tagana sneaks off again and meets up with bandits in the Cave of 500 Eyes, a famed assassin's hideout. Tagana tells the bandits to attack the caravan on the road outside of the city and to kill Marco Polo. They are overheard by Barbara, who followed Tagana into the cave. She is found and held prisoner. After the rest of the TARDIS crew realize Barbara is missing, the Doctor remembers that she had expressed interest in the cave and asks for directions. He, Susan, and Ping Cho head over to go look for Barbara. Inside, they find Barbara's handkerchief and begin to look in earnest, calling for her. A bandit holds a knife to Barbara's throat, and Susan screams, having seen a set of supposedly painted eyes on the wall of the cave that seem to move.
Which is actually titled The Cave of 500 Eyes at the end of part 2, but then by the beginning of part 3, it has been shortened to just 500 Eyes. Which is a very different... The Cave of 500 Eyes is like the Cave of Wonders. Again, another Aladdin reference. They keep coming up. But whereas 500 Eyes, I just picture like a pile of eyeballs.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I don't know, but here's your condensation water scene, Nick.
Oh hell yeah.
Yeah.
Marco Polo just does not believe
witchcraft.
Witchcraft. Yeah.
You
got water. That's the thing, is he just doesn't, he's so mad that they're not doing exactly 100% what he tells them to. and that stuff is happening outside of his control. And it's like, dude, you're Marco Polo. you found land by floating.
Right.
Congrats.
Good work.
Congrats, man. It was there. You just found it and were a dick in it. I know what this needs. A dick.
And I'm just the dick.
Oh my gosh.
I want to show these people what's what.
So at a certain point in this, they sort of like land in like a little bazaar area where they can like shop for stuff and
bazaar with two Z's.
Right. And
it's not very bizarre with an I.
No. Bazaar. And Ping Cho has decided that she's going to put on a little performance for everyone. And everyone's very excited. And then we are treated to a 10-minute scene of Ping Cho telling us the tale of Aladdin.
Watching this story, but this part especially, I found myself thinking about like the British children that would watch this weekly in the 60s. And this had to have been a bummer. This had to have been like, wow, that was 10 minutes of my of my 20 minutes of Doctor Who this week. 10 minutes was like Ping Cho story time. And like that had to have hurt. And then going directly from that to the news, you know?
Yeah. And it's really strange. Like the idea of someone recapping Aladdin today is so bizarre because we have the Disney movie, but this is like 30 years before the Disney movie happened, you know?
Yeah.
And so it just makes it even weirder because it's like, oh man, she's talking about Aladdin, but like this isn't the Disney movie.
Like, like Aladdin was like an old man in Ping Cho's version. Yeah. It's great. And again, nothing against Ping Cho. You know, this is a very pro Ping Cho household, but yeah, not what I was after.
No.
And again, these are photographs.
Right.
But it doesn't look very lively, even if it wasn't photographs.
Yeah.
But and then Tigana goes to the cave and Susan follows him to the cave, and then Barbara is there too, and Barbara gets a Mongol finds her and takes her into a secret room, and then Susan was looking at the cave walls, and there's the eyes and the
eyes. Well, there's a really funny part where she's like, she screams.
Yeah.
A classic.
The eyes, they move.
And then it cuts to a photograph of a painting.
Right.
And the doctor's like, what? Like, what are you freaking out
Isn't
about?
that the cliffhanger? Like, she's like, the eyes, and then it's just like the music hitting. So funny.
Yeah. The eyes, they move. It's very extra. Might be the most extra thing that Susan has done in the show so far.
I don't know. That's difficult.
Yeah, it is. It is, but screaming the eyes they move. It's
really there. It's vintage Carol Ann. It's vintage Carol Ann Ford.
Yeah, true. Very true. All right, well, that's the first part of Marco Polo. We will be back next week to talk about Marco Polo episodes 4 through 7.
And guys, it gets weird.
It does. It does. So we'll be back next week. Welcome back, guys. Glad we're back with a new season all the way around.
It's gonna be a big year.
Yeah, it is gonna be a big year. I think the plan. I mean, we'll see how it goes, but I think the plan is to do 2 seasons of this before the new season of the show happens. Mm-hmm. Hopefully. So we'll see how it goes, but so thanks to everyone who's listening to us and has been listening to us. Just a quick reminder, we've got the Facebook group. So if you're on Facebook,
where do you think Susan came from?
Yeah. Maybe I'll put a poll up.
Susan, granddaughter,
granddaughter,
weird student,
or stranger. You decide. And check out everything else at Dueling Genre. If you're not a Patreon supporter, that's a huge help. Go to duelinggenre.com/support. We're trying to, we were really close to hitting our goal for that Patreon exclusive Doctor Who and the Daleks podcast, and then we just started like bleeding patrons. So
that's too bad.
Yeah, we were really close. We were only I think $30 away or $20 away, something like that. And then Patreon was like, we're going to start charging you. And then we just bled like $100 of patrons. So
thanks,
anyway,
Patreon.
We need to build that back up again. Yeah. Thanks, Patreon. Yeah. And then they didn't do it. And then they were like, oh, sorry, we messed up. It's like, well, it's too late now. Everybody jump ship. So anyway, so go check out our Patreon page, duelinggenre.com/support. We're looking for, $5 a month is all we're looking for. And you gain access to everything we do on our Patreon page. And if we hit $500 a month, which isn't a lot, we're at like $393 last time I checked, $398, something like that. So we're only like $100 away. So that's not a lot. It's not a lot.
You get so much content.
Yeah, you get so much. If 20 of you would go and throw $5 a month down, we would be able to do the Doctor Who and the Daleks podcast.
Yeah.
So, and if you've never heard us talk about it before, none of us have seen the Peter Cushing Doctor Who movies that they made in the 60s. We have not seen these movies. Peter Cushing plays a character who is named Doctor Who. And fights the Daleks, and it's supposed to be ridiculous and insane and crazy 60s madness.
Hopefully physically fights them.
Yeah, oh God, I hope so. None of us have seen it, and so we're going to make a podcast where we talk about it 5 minutes at a time, having never seen the movie before. So we're not going to watch it beforehand. We're just going to watch it 5 minutes at a time and talk about those 5 minutes. And it should be a lot of fun. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in hearing us do, go check that out. And if you have suggestions for other stuff that you'd like to hear us talk about or something as like a Patreon exclusive thing, let us know about that. And maybe we'll put up other goals and things in the future. Let us know. And we will be back next week.